All right, today is March 4th. It is 16 minutes past 6. This is a special weekly meeting COVID update for the Southampton School Committee. We have 4 or 5 members present at the time. Julianne is absent, but I expect her to join us shortly. Superintendent is excused for this evening's meeting, and Mrs. Pluta is here representing administration, as well as Stephanie Foss. So, first item on the agenda is the ongoing weekly update related to COVID-19. The COVID-19 update came out from the superintendent probably about 15-20 minutes ago. It'll be published in its regular manner. I'm just going to hit the highlights related to Southampton, and then we can go into greater detail if need be. But on the grand scheme of things, Southampton had 9 cases in the past 9 days, 18 in the past 14. That's a decline of 33.33% in the percent change in cases over the prior 14 days. Average daily incident rate per 100,000 in the last 14 days is 21.4. Total positive tests in the last 14 days is 20. And the percent positive of tests in the last 14 days is 2.6. The narrative that he supplied for Southampton is there were 18 new cases in the community in the last 14 days. There were 27 new cases in the prior 2 weeks, period, and 47 in the 2 weeks before that. The average daily incident rate is 21.4 per 100,000. The benchmark for learning model change consideration is 8 per 100,000. The positive test rate is 2.62, down from 4.4 last week, and still remaining, he says over the 3%, but it's below the 3% benchmark, calling for a change in consideration. This week, we communicated about 2 confirmed positive cases within the school community on March 1st. Both of those cases had previously been identified as close contacts in connection with one of our cases from February 23rd. The case from February 23rd had resulted in an identification of 11 close contacts. Of the 11 close contacts, 2 have tested positive, 8 have been cleared by the Board of Health, and 1 student still remains quarantined appropriately. That positive case from February 23rd is still in isolation, awaiting for the Board of Health clearance. And we had communicated about a second case on February 23rd, and that case has been cleared by the Board of Health. That's the end of the Southampton section. Stephanie or Eliza, either one of you want to comment on the numbers? Or
yeah, I just wanted to add, Tracy also provided to us, we have 3 positive cases within the school community that are still in isolation, awaiting clearance. A total of 6 close contacts that are quarantined, awaiting clearance, and then 2 staff members that are currently out due to COVID reasons.
okay. Eliza, as far as with 2 staff members out, are there staffing concerns or?
We've been holding our own. We've been doing okay.
Okay. So we are now 2 weeks removed from the February break as of tomorrow, right?
Yep.
And it doesn't appear that we're having the repeat that we thought we might have from December, right? Okay. Also, our Julianne has joined us now, so we have a full complement of the committee. Any committee members? Discussion on the report that came out a little while ago about our numbers?
No, I think the numbers speak for themselves.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is new business, and this is a discussion centered around DESE guidelines indicating a greater return to in-person learning in April. We added this after our last regular meeting, and it's going to be on every Thursday as we move forward towards April, to help us gather information and be in a better position to make an informed decision prior to April 1st or April. I do want to, at our last meeting, I did ask or indicate that we wanted to get feedback from the association on a few things that we talked about. And one was about the full return, but also we talked briefly in our last public meeting about the April vacation and whether there was a change on that or a thought. And I did receive, while I'm looking this up, I received a communication from Elizabeth Cawley, the association president. She, I believe she's here listening, but I think she's in doing double duty tonight and not able to speak. And she asked that I read her communication into the record. So if you give me a minute to pull that up, I will. Okay, and this is a statement that is that we received on March 3rd at 8:30. It says, the Southampton Teachers Association is strongly against the cancellation of our April vacation, the vacation that has been on our school calendar for the past year, the vacation that we have all looked forward to, especially during a school year such as this. While there are many aspects of this pandemic that have created stress for teachers that you, as the school committee, do not have control over, this is one thing that you do have complete control of. We have requested time and time again to be listened to as educators. We are the people in the building each school day with your children, and we know that asking teachers and students to work for 16 or 17 weeks straight without a reasonable break is wrong, especially during a global pandemic. Unlike the schools around us, we have been in person since September and have earned our days off. We use April vacation to take care of our own mental wellness so that we are able to come back to the school to the end of this year strong. Teachers use this vacation to de-stress and to attend medical and or other vital appointments. Many members of our staff have already scheduled numerous appointments and made commitments based on the current school calendar. Families planning on traveling are not likely to cancel weeks before their planned vacation. Our custodians use this time to complete planned projects such as floors that have been on April vacation tasks for years. Changing the school calendar in a month preceding a vacation is unfair to both staff and families. We ask you to not add to the stress of an already extremely difficult school year and keep April vacation on the school calendar as planned to allow us to recharge. Sincerely, the Southampton Teachers Association. Okay. And that's the only communication received related to either canceling the April break and or a return to school. I shall say comments on DESI's regulations that came out 2 weeks ago now, or a week and a half ago. I'll put it up to the committee, whichever way you want to go.
Are you talking about the April vacation part, or what do you mean?
Just anything. I mean, I thank the association for sending in the letter, and I, as we talked about last week, if we are going to make a move about April vacation, we need to do it sooner rather than later because of the communication that needs to go out. So we can talk about that. We can talk about brainstorm a little bit about trying to get more in-person learning, if that's the direction we want to go in. What are the obstacles that we're envisioning? Maybe.
I'll start with the April vacation part. I kind of am on their side now too, especially seeing that we didn't, we did have February break and we all were like, oh, our numbers are going to go through the roof again. And to see them go down is a good sign. And a lot of people do already have their plans in place and things like that. And I don't think it's going to change anything for them.
I think I would generally have to agree with that. I mean, it seems like it's too soon to have to institute that sort of change, and we're not seeing the bad numbers from it. I mean, I would like to get 4 weeks of education straight on if we can in person, but I think it's more important to make sure that we all have our collective sanity. So I wouldn't want to antagonize the teachers in any way too, with a short notice of even though it would be what, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I think we're best off staying the course at this point, as long as the numbers continue to reflect that.
I think that, you know, based on the contents of the STA letter, you know, although this wasn't my my add to the agenda, I do think that we should be open to, as a community, to have discussions on the merit of ideas without people adding a lot of other things into it. I think we should have the opportunity as a committee and as a community to discuss ideas and evaluate the cost benefit analysis. So I think some parts of that statement were right along those lines, and I very appreciate, you know, being able to see the other side and see why those positions are taken. But I think too, you know, we're going to have conversations like this about things that might potentially be, you know, ultimately unwanted, but I think it's a good exercise to have the conversation and to see the merits of the argument before we just say, you know, no, this is terrible and we shouldn't even be having this conversation. And you're saying by having it that we're not working hard or earning our days, but that's not true at all. You know, we know how hard teachers work, and you're making this year happen for our community. And so it's just about having the discussion on the merit of the pieces at play, rather than making a statement about your work, which I think really speaks for itself.
So I agree. I think that we should keep April vacation as is, because there was no increase in cases due to this. And I think that would have been the only reason to think about removing it, was to prevent a bump in cases. So I think we're good to keep it. I don't think there's any concerns about time on learning for us compared to our surrounding communities, because we've been in person a lot more than the surrounding towns. So I think we need to give people a break and let them have their sanity and mental health vacation. I'm a huge proponent of mental health vacations. So yeah, I agree. I think we should just keep the calendar as it is right now.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed to keeping it the way it is. I would just point out, and we would have this problem regardless, whether we were in a pandemic or not, but the fact that we're using the snow days, we're pushing into late June. And just as a reminder, the entire school is not air conditioned, but we will, you know, it is an opportunity to have 4 days of cooler classes in April versus late June. But that being said, that's not a sufficient reason in my mind to go ahead and make the change. It's just between now and then, I don't see a path or any consideration being given to get the school air conditioned in time. So I think we're good on April vacation, right? Okay, so now, how do we get all the kids back, and how fast does it happen in the most safe and best way?
I think that we should, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Allison. I
I
didn't
think
know
that
if
with
he was
the
looking
recent
at me.
statements from Commissioner Riley and Governor Baker, even though most people disagree, but you know, there are some agreeing, the plans to remove the hybrid and the remote off the table are there. He has his meeting tomorrow to discuss that, and hybrid in some cases will no longer account for a school day at all. And I get that, you know, we've been in a lot and we have more than other schools, but in the same, I think if we applied for that waiver to continue hybrid, I don't think Norris would qualify. That's just my personal opinion. I would like to see us be able to prepare and start in at least some grades at a time slowly, compared to just the governor or the commissioner just saying, okay, now they're all in. I'd rather see us get them in with a gradual phase in like we did in the first chunk.
I don't want to interrupt the flow of the discussion, but just so it's on your radar, John, I have a point of order for after this discussion is over.
Okay.
But we can continue this one until we're through this piece.
So Allison, are you thinking we try to work on bringing additional grades back on the 4 full days and the half day Wednesday, or bring
I
grades
have a
back
possible
between?
motion, but I wanted to hear other people's discussions first.
I think
Okay.
that we should have, we could ask administration to present a plan is what I would probably want to do, where I think once we're 3 weeks out of red would be the first point I would say would be a good time point. It's the first week out. Let's give it 2 more weeks, but let's start making the plan. I feel like that plan is easier for the kids who can keep 6 feet, and, bring them back. I would love for them to come back on Wednesday for half a day. And then the other groups that can't keep 6 feet, I think, when they're eating in the cafeteria or in having their snack or lunch, 6 feet needs to happen when we're taking our masks off. Some sort of plan needs to be developed because we can't just have people 3 feet apart when they're eating right now. But we can come up, maybe if there's a plan, whether we need dividers or something, if they're gonna, I've seen plans where kids can keep 3 feet, but adults to kids should be 6 feet still, like a teacher to a child should be 6 feet. And then when you're eating, you need to keep 6 feet. So those are the types of things I would like to see in a plan.
Yeah, no, and I like the idea of asking the administration to draft a plan. I think we should give them more parameters of what we're looking for. For example, what you just made some excellent points there about, the kids maintaining the 3.5 to 4 feet, but, adults, 2 kids, 6 feet and that. I guess my other question that I'd want us to try and provide guidance on is, what are we really looking for on April 1st or whatever that first Monday is in April? Are we looking for 5 days full return or something less, like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday? Or do, what do we want to do? What do we want to try and accomplish? Because, and here's why I say this, because I think if we want all the kids back in 5 days a week, I think there's more work on the administration to make all that happen. And we may at some point, we need to hear from Eliza, but as I remember, there's some challenges, and they may have answers to doing that, about the prep time and whether there's specials hired. And I think the lunch issue is a big issue. I also think that in April, we're probably in warmer weather, so we might be able to utilize outside more. Maybe it's always picnic tables and lunches, but I think I'm open for everything, but I think the next step for me is to get all the grades back on the 4-day schedule.
Yeah, I'd like to see the 4 days, and especially if we're gonna do a phase in. I think I rather prioritize phasing in more grades than taking away not taking away, but changing the 4-day week. It just seems like that might be logistically easier as an approach. But maybe this is something that Eliza can answer now. Maybe not. I'm not sure, because I know you did a lot of research leading up to the school year too. If we had more grades in, what is the lunch, like the current lunch situation? Are we able, when do we run out of the 6 foot space for people?
Yep. So the only grades that I could not fit in the cafeteria right now, 6 feet apart, would be grades 4 and 5.
Do they eat lunch at the same time?
No,
that what?
We don't have we don't have 2 grade levels in the cafeteria at a time because we are 6 feet apart, and and right now we have KN1 eating in the classrooms still. Because we need time in between classes to sanitize, I had to have simultaneous kids eating in the cafeteria, like say 2nd grades in the cafeteria and 1st grades eating in the classroom, because there's not enough time between 10:50 and 1:30 to serve lunches from K to 6 with time in between for sanitizing.
And the current setup right now for 4th and 5th, are there 3 classrooms per grade or 4?
4 and 4th grade, and 3 and 5th grade.
And could you, if you know, could you keep the 6-foot distance if each day one classroom from each grade ate outside? And we rotated who got the picnic?
That would help if we could be outside, absolutely. It's hard to think about that right now because I haven't been thinking about outside yet because it's still going to be cold through April. But, you know, I guess if it's time for me to say it, I've been thinking about this plan and I've been thinking about, you know, are we talking about 3 feet, 4.5 feet, or 6 feet? Are we out of the red? Are we out of the red for 3 weeks? You know, when do we move forward with this? And at this time, I would propose bringing back grade 6, 4 days a week, beginning on March 15th. We can do that 6 feet apart based on our numbers right now in 6th grade. So that would be K1, 2, and 6. And then 3rd grade is close, but not really. You know, they could do 6 feet apart, but they would have, you know, 16 kids in a class or two. So it gets a little tricky. And then unless we go less than 6 feet, if we go less than 6 feet, we can have everybody back. I'm also talking to a specials teacher to come if this is the direction that we go, so that I can add another special to everybody. So instead of 3 days of 35-minute specials, they would have 4 days of 40-minute specials. And then if you include days when they don't have recess duty, then they would get their contractual minutes. So these are the things, you know, that I've been thinking about, and thinking about having possibly 4th and 5th grade come all in half days and not have to worry about them eating lunch, and then doing simultaneous instruction in the afternoon. But there's cost added to that because we pay the bus company now for a morning run and an afternoon run. This would be adding the bus cost in the middle of the day. And it also isn't always great for parents for kids to have a half day. I mean, right now they know they have babysitters or cohorts that they're working with for 2 full days a week, and to switch that to everyday half day, I realize that that's a problem.
Yeah, and I don't like this age group kind of having that at home. I'd rather have them in. if possible.
Yeah. And I totally get that. But the numbers in 4th and 5th grade are such that I can't get them in full 6 feet apart.
Mhm.
And then if we go less than 6 feet apart in class, they don't fit in the cafeteria 6 feet apart to eat. That's
What about something like she suggested where they're eating in the classroom with shields? Like they don't keep their shields there permanently or whatever, but at least while they're eating. And if it like stays in their desk, if it's one of those fold up ones, and it can go away after.
it is going to cost money, and they'll have to be cleaned after every use. So, I mean,
This might be due to staffing, but you know, is there the potential to split classes between the cafeteria and the classroom?
right, it is a staffing issue. So if I have, say, there's 4 4th grades and 2 eat in the cafeteria and 2 eat up in the class, now I need additional staff members to watch them up in the class, which is already sometimes a problem with K and 1. Constantly trying, I've been covering lunch in the classroom for the last week, and you know, trying to get anybody that we can. That's the problem.
Are any of the classrooms joined? Like to have one staff?
Yes, we could have one person between 2 classes. We do that now in 1st grade.
That, okay. Yeah,
I mean, I'd love to start with just 6th grade. You know, I thought that was something that could happen right away. March 15th, I could message the parents tomorrow. It's just the matter of moving a couple kids from one homeroom to another, but all those kids see every teacher anyway, so they're already used to them. You know, and the buses would be fine. We've already checked that out. It doesn't add any additional stress to the bus routes.
Good.
And then we would have K1, 2, and 6 in 4 days a week.
I'm
And
tempted
so
to go. Sorry.
go ahead, Greg.
I
Sorry.
thought you were done, so go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I'm trying, I like that you had a discussion at the beginning about, you know, what are your thoughts on it? Because I want to make a plan based on the way I think you're going to go, rather than come up with 3 plans that take me forever and you're really not interested in 2 out of the 3 plans. So I hear you about bringing all kids back in 4 days and keeping Wednesday for now. It's, go ahead. Austin looks like he was going to say something.
Yeah, sorry. I was going to ask, do we have the space to pursue Julianne's idea of, you know, if we had to drop kids for mask on time to 4.5 feet so that the teachers could stay at 6 feet? I think that was Julianne's comment. Sorry if it's not.
Okay, so if we have 20 kids in a class, 4.5 feet apart,
Yeah.
I would have to see how far away that first row is to the teacher. Many times it's tight. I mean, we're, you know, we want to be honest and say we're 6 feet apart from the kids, but a lot of the times we're not. We just can't be. It's impossible. When I'm in first grade covering lunch and they want me to open up their milk, that's the reality. I'm going right in their space and opening this milk and this snack and that thermos. And that's just the reality of it. And it's a good eye opener for me too, because I'm not in the classroom all the time, but, you know, stuff like that happens. However, I would like to set it up that the teachers are 6 feet away from the kids when they're standing in the front of the class or on the side of the class. When we have all kids in 6 feet apart in some of the grade levels, like say 3rd grade, kids' desks are now going to be on the tile. And teachers in the lower grades have gotten creative, because I do have 16 in one of my lower grade classes where we're all in 4 days a week. But teachers have gotten creative that when they line the kids up to go somewhere, instead of lining them up on the tile like they used to, where it makes sense, where it's not on the rug where the desks are, they line them up all the way around the room 6 feet apart. So it's like a big, huge circle. I mean, everybody gets so creative, but these are some of the things that I would, you know, have to help the teachers think about as we move forward.
Do you like the idea of bringing 6th grade back, since that's something that is 6 feet and we can do it?
Yeah.
And I think that's a good plan to start with. And then as hopefully numbers just keep going down, and by the time we get to the next groups, the numbers are even lower.
Yeah.
And it will feel okay to go to, we've seen no in-house transmission. It's been great. And I understand that logistically 6 feet is something that's our goal. And in real life, we just do our best to try to keep that. But I think, yeah, whatever plan you can come up with and present to us, I think just starting that conversation to go forward is a good idea.
So I have a question, and maybe just clarification. If we bring the 6th graders back, great. What, if any, ramification is there about the children that are still on Florida virtual? Do we need to give them a fine date, and once this date passes, you have to remain on virtual for the remainder of the year?
And that's the tricky part, because there are 12 kids in 6th grade on Florida virtual. And if those 12 families of those students decide to send their kiddos back, even if we say you got to give us 3 weeks notice, then I can no longer do 6 feet in 6th grade with all the kids back 4 days. And it's like that at every grade level.
So I almost think, so I have to think about this for a few minutes, but I almost think that if we're going to make a move, if we're going to vote to bring 6th graders back, that we also have to be prepared to take a vote to shut down the transfer between Florida virtual and the school.
And if we're gonna do that, I don't think it should be just at the 6th grade. I think we should lock down all grades at the same point.
True. Up until, I mean, yes, I would go further to say if and when we ever lowered our requirement down to 3 feet or 4 feet, and then it doesn't become an issue, then yes, we break, we open it back up.
Right, should we have the capacity to bring more in and safe capacity once there's the better numbers, and sure.
Yeah, I just have to think about.
The commissioner at one point had said that some schools were making kids wait until the end of a term, which could have been weeks. We never did that. We said, just give us a notice and we'll let you know when they can start. And we usually did a week or two. Then I got a little bit more, I had to put a little bit of a cap and say, we might need more time than that, but we really haven't said no. But the commissioner said, you can't make these families wait a whole semester. It has to be, so there's something out there in writing that says,
I know
that
my school system just sent out a survey of, are you coming or are you not? And there's no changing it. It was whatever you chose as your answer is what you're choosing for the rest of the year. And
okay.
there is going to be no exceptions to that.
So one of the things that I was going to propose to do is survey my Florida virtual families and ask them, do you have any indication that you would be coming back between now and the end of the school year, just to get a kind of like a head count? And
Can we simultaneously ask legal about to opine on this issue?
I think, well, so far what's on the table is, well, short answer is Austin. Yeah, we can ask them to opine on anything. Longer answer is, I think at least what Eliza's suggesting for our consideration tonight is a March 15th date. So unless Eliza already has it and can answer it this way, I think I'd want to hear Superintendent Sullivan's thoughts about shutting down the virtual. I still don't object to sending it off to the law firm, but I don't know, Eliza, did you have that specific question already with Michael, and you know what his thought is?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I have one question because I know I was late getting out of work. The 2 cases that tested positive from the 11 close contacts, was that in-house transmission, do we think, or was that, it was? Okay.
Yeah, they were 2 close contacts that were exposed at school,
Okay.
and tested positive.
Okay. Okay, so then I retract that statement I said about not having in-house transmission.
And I didn't want to say it if I didn't have to say it. I wasn't sure if it was okay to say, so I didn't say anything.
Okay, so some of the pros and cons. So we have a busing issue if we do half days. I think I have a long record of saying I'm not in favor of half days, but if that's the only solution that we have, I'll think about it. Yeah. I like the gradual approach of doing the 4 days and giving us that break, and then maybe if we're all cruising along and everything's going fine after the April vacation, we pick up to the 5. Just some random thoughts. I think we need to figure out a way to get creative with the lunches, because that seems to be the obstacle.
So we were talking about either getting creative with the lunches and half the grade goes to the cafeteria and the other, the correct number of kids that can go to the cafeteria go, the other kids stay in the class, but they need to be 6 feet apart, or we're not 6 feet apart in the class and we're using shields, if I can purchase those.
Yeah, and as the weather gets nice, we still have to really encourage keeping distance, keeping masks on at recess and outside play. People are gonna think the weather's nice and we can run around and play closer. We just have to really keep that,
Right.
keep the space still, even if we are bringing more in.
The snow needs to melt. off the field because the upper grades don't wear boots or snow pants, so they can't really go out there. So everybody's on the blacktop. So then we had to divide the blacktop into sections and the play structure so that the cohorts are not mixing. It gets a little bit tight. So no more snow.
I heard between the kids, it can get pretty political who gets what box.
Always something.
So John, I would like to say the motion, even though if it's not going to pass, because it's definitely, I have heard from Lisa now, and I didn't know you would go that route before I made it, but I still want to put it out there because I still feel really strongly about getting the kids back. So I'm going to make a motion to begin a phase-in approach to full learning, but I would like it to be where 3rd and 4th grade return for the 4 days a week, beginning March 15th, so not next week, with Wednesdays still off for cleaning and for teacher prep for 2 weeks. And then it's from this, with that, students would be spaced at 3.5 feet or more away from each other, but keeping the 6 feet away from the teacher space. So that way the teachers are still, as much as they can, holding their 6 feet. And then after the 2 weeks, depending on our COVID rates again, bring back the 5th and 6th with the same regulations, with keeping the students, 3.5 or more and 6 feet away from the teacher for another 2, with Wednesdays still off. And then from there, we would, after that additional 2 weeks, we could look at the Wednesdays again.
Is there a second?
I'll second it just for the purposes of having a discussion on it.
Okay. Discussion?
I'm not too keen on going back closer than 6 feet, especially now knowing that we did have some in school, student to student transmission. That worries me a little bit. The suggestion of going with just the 6th grade in 2 weeks seems like that's a more measured approach that doesn't increase our risk threshold. So I think I'm leaning in that direction, but I'm not going to hear what everybody has to say.
We don't necessarily know that it was student to student.
That's what I was just going to say.
So it could be, and I don't even know if we can talk about that, but it could potentially
No
be.
names.
No.
No. It could potentially be an adult to a student and that same adult to a student if there were only one adult, or maybe it's, I don't know what the configuration is.
Oh, you mean the adult like the intermediary vector between the two?
No,
Yeah, Greg, you're right. It could be an adult, it could be a child. It definitely wasn't a visitor since we're closed.
right.
The reason it makes a difference to me is if it were to be, student to student transmission, that would tell me that the 6 foot range is barely effective because it's being violated at some point in time. And if we're going to below 6 feet and we're already having 1, we're going to see a greater potential increase. So is there any way we can differentiate that case as being whether it is student to student transmission or student to adult? It seems to me that's still a non-identified way.
I don't think we yet have the technology, right?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, it all depends on how it's being reported in the Maven system. I mean, can't we inquire the Board of Health for this information? Because it actually impacts our ability to make the most correct and safest decision for everybody.
We can ask. I don't know. My gut tells me they would have provided that information if they thought they could share it.
Oh, I'm not sure about that.
I think
My gut tells me that Stephanie would have shared with us by now if she could share the information.
I mean, I have a pretty good understanding of HIPAA regulations too, so that's still sufficiently de-anonymized to be provided to us without being able to identify the specific individuals.
I don't think it matters too much, who the individual or age of the individual, more of the circumstances surrounded it. And if there was something to learn and fix from it.
Yeah.
So if the age of the individuals doesn't matter so much as what was the scenario, and is that a scenario that we need to address and fix so it doesn't happen again?
Yeah, I suppose I'm looking at too that, with the student to student transmission, you're looking at a totally different seating configuration where they're inserted into a grid, whether it's adult to student transmission, then it's an entirely different sort of physical interaction capacity. It's going to be on a minimized basis just by the fewer number of adults to the children that we have.
So just on Julianne's comment, Stephanie, since this appears to be a first transmission within the school, regardless of the age of the individuals, was a evaluation done or a Monday morning review done? Okay, how do we think this happened? Are there any changes or tweaks we could do? And if so, have they been implemented? If not, is it a financial reason, and is something the committee can do to help? So I guess that's an open-ended question.
Yeah, so when we were identifying close contacts, it became clear that appropriate physical distancing was not being maintained in this space. So since we learned that information in the contact tracing, Aliza has addressed this with her entire staff again, just kind of, reminding everybody of what the expectations are and why it is so important. So, I think, yeah, that's important to do in every scenario, and especially now where this is our first instance of evidence of transmission within the school building. So it has been addressed with everyone in the building, and hopefully moving forward will not be an issue.
Okay.
I would say too, I definitely would feel uncomfortable disclosing, just for, the individual's privacy, of the, who transmitted to who. I think if the Board of Health were okay sharing that information, and I could certainly ask, then that would be a route that I would be comfortable it being shared in. But I would really want it, I think, to come from either Sharon, the contact tracer, or one of our Board of Health members providing that.
Okay. I will, after this meeting, I'll reach out to Kate. I'll probably do it via email, Stephanie, and copy you on it. And just to the extent that you can you identify one of the three: child to child, child to adult, adult to child, adult to adult? And if they're not comfortable, then that's fine.
And can we ask them for their reasoning if they decline to do that, specifically in reference to what regulation within the HIPAA guidelines they're speaking of?
I would, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So still on the motion that's on the table for consideration. March 15th return of grades 3 and 4 on 4 days a week, where the children in 3 and 4 maintain 6 feet where possible, but it could go down to 3.5. But staff is to maintain 6 feet. 2 weeks later, grades 5 and 6.
2 weeks later, pending results, making sure and I purposely didn't do it next week so we could hopefully see a decline then too. And if we had to make changes, to make changes.
Okay.
And I think there needs to be time to prepare.
All right. Other discussion or thoughts on this?
I think I'm comfortable with 6th graders and then having administration come up with a plan for the remaining grades because of the lunch concerns that really need to be addressed. And then I would start with the 6th. If we're going to do this after 3 weeks of under the red, would that be the 15th? This is the first week. Next
week's the 8th.
And then so the week after that would be up to 3. Okay. So then, and we're meeting every Thursday, right? So.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I think it's hard to commit not knowing what those numbers look like. Not knowing what although, it sounds like, at least for the cases that popped up since the last report, those are included. So that's good. So, hopefully those individuals come off the report next round. But that's my main concern is, are we going to keep in the downward trajectory because some of the graphs are starting to bend in the wrong direction again. So it just makes me a little concerned in that way. I think I would be a lot more comfortable with 2 weeks in yellow, although I do get Allison's point that if we were to do it, that we kind of need time to plan.
And it's when we push back the other way, it's just pushing deeper and deeper into April and not getting them back before. And I really don't see a point in going just for June. I mean, I do see a point in going just for June, but
Eliza, can we talk about third grade for a minute? So third grade lunch-wise is not an issue. It
Correct.
was only fourth and fifth, but third grade in the classroom, all the classrooms or one or two classrooms have a ratio
Well,
issue?
There are 15, 14, and 18 in the 3 classes. So I would have to move a couple kids out of the class with 18. And then we would have like 16, 16, and 15. And ideal is 14. It really is, ideal is 14. So to add 2 more kids, I mean, you know, I can put 2 desks somewhere. I know it's not going to make people happy and they'll be on the tile, like I explained before. But it's doable.
So 2 desks on the tile, keep 6 feet while
Mhm.
they're at their desk.
Correct.
And there is no lunch issue.
Correct.
Okay. So
That's 3rd and 4th grade.
that's third and sixth,
At 3rd and 6th.
Right.
Okay.
yeah, which leaves fourth and fifth.
Keep
Fourth
in
and
mind, I just want
I'm
to
sorry, go ahead.
say, there are 7 students in 3rd grade that are full remote. So if we have people come back and we're 6 feet apart with 16 kids in a class, we really can't add any more without going under 6 feet.
And for each student that we add, how much distance does it decrease it? I know that's a funky question, but I'm sorry. I'm curious, you know, like I don't think it jumps to like 4.5 feet with one.
So the hard part is that these rooms are not cleared of everything except desks. So I tried to be nice in September and not go into every class and strip everybody of all of their stuff. And I basically said, at that point, we were talking about 4.5 feet, right? So I was like, you can fit 20 desks in here, you know, 4.5 feet apart, and just move that and I'll show you and stuff. Then, you know, we're at 6. So I think people got comfortable with their stuff. There's some moving around that probably has to happen. So it's hard for me to say it's not wall to wall because I can't use all that space. So it just depends on how much stuff is in the room. There's not a lot of stuff in the rooms though. There really isn't. And I have to say again, teachers are not vaccinated yet. And it's not comfortable having kids right up in your space within your 6 feet of that first row. And we all want teachers to teach and to do the regular curriculum and to teach like it's normal and we're not in a pandemic anymore and then everybody feels good, but it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good upstairs when it's going to start getting hot and we're wearing a mask all day and there's no air conditioning and there's, you know, 16, 17 kids in a class and we're using shields for lunches if that's what we're going to do. But I'm, you know, willing to continue to move forward at a pace here because I feel like it's time to.
So Allison, I'm happy to call the vote and go through the roll call, or would you consider amending your motion to the following? And feel free to say no.
I'm not really in favor of that at all, because I'm also
Okay.
looking at the other side too of what if people who only want hybrid and who are only comfortable with hybrid choose to go full remote. We might lose some students to remote too, which could also, so I mean, we can look at it both ways. We don't know which way they're gonna go. It could go the opposite too. We could have a whole bunch that suddenly choose, no, I don't want my kid below 6 feet and choose to be full remote. And according to the commissioner and stuff, that is okay, that you can choose to be full remote, but you might just take hybrid completely off.
Okay. So I'm not gonna offer an amendment. If there's no other discussion, we'll call the vote. Okay. Roll call. Greg,
Bennett, nay.
Austin,
Rogers abstain.
Julianne,
No, sure, nay.
Allison,
Allison, obviously, I.
and Lumber, I'll abstain. So it fails. I want to make a motion that on March 15th, 6th grade returns 4 days a week, that we prepare for a return on March 22nd of the 3rd grade, all assuming that we continue to project in a downward turn 4 days a week. And on March 29th, which would give us 3 weeks, we prepare for 4th and 5th grade to return 4 days a week. That gives the administration time to develop a plan for March 29th lunch issue. Also, that the administration contact the children currently enrolled in Florida Virtual to determine whether or not, give them until March 22nd to determine whether or not they're going to return. And after that, we close Florida Virtual. After the 22nd, if you're on virtual, you remain on virtual for the remainder of the year. And that we review this every Thursday for possible change or adjustments, but this is the path that we start down to be prepared for everyone back for the 8th.
Can you say the dates one more time?
These are all Mondays. March 15th, 6th grade. March 22nd, the following Monday, 3rd grade, since we can maintain the lunch and we only need to add 2 classes or 2 desks on tiles. Then the following Monday, March 29th, 4th and 5th, which will give the administration 3 weeks to see if we can come up with a solution for lunch. We need to continue to see a decline in their numbers to stay on this path, and that we survey the current parents of the Florida virtual children and have them tell us by the 22nd whether or not they're returning to school. If they are, then we need to look at the numbers and determine if we can stay on this path. But if they say they're not, then they're remaining on Florida virtual for the remainder of the year. And that we review it every Thursday. And this isn't set in stone. This is just a guide for administration to work on and then tell us what the hiccups or problems are. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion?
Is there for the 6-foot lunches, like work into that, or are you just going to leave that for administration to work out? Because I would want lunches.
It has to be 6 feet for lunches.
Well, yeah. So the first time, I believe the first time, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the first time we would run into an issue is on March 29th, when 4th and 5th come back. Right? So, yeah. So I'm leaving it open now for the administration to tell us what the best plan is. And I'm also prepared if they come back and say there is no way to accommodate that, I may change my position. But it's just setting a trajectory for us to be on.
And with the addition of 4th and 5th grade, your motion is saying that during masked time, they could be distanced at 4.5 feet?
Correct.
During mask time, yeah.
Yep. And that, yeah. And
So that would supersede
on
the previous motion to keep everyone at 6 feet.
Correct. The children would be allowed to be up to 4.5 feet, but we would want an adult to child distance of 6 feet.
Okay. And for the, you said we need to continue to see a decline in numbers?
Meaning stay out of
Yeah.
red or,
Yeah, in our community transmissions levels, right? We're down, we've got 1 week now out of the red. So I want to keep seeing us out of the red.
So is it that you're saying as long as we don't go back into the red, that this is a go, or it has to go from, you know, yellow to lower yellow to green to gray?
I'm just saying it, I said it just needs to continue to decline. But we're going to review it every Thursday. So it may go up, it may be, it's, what is it, 2.1 now for sake of discussion, and it goes to 2.2. All right, well, let's give it another week. And it drops to 1.8, fine. You know, we haven't gone into the red. But I want to do it, craft it in such a way that we remain fluid and we can adjust and don't get ourselves into a hole, but chart a path.
Yeah. I'm just, if we were to phrase it that way, then if we do see an increase from 2.1 to 2.00001, then we need a motion to override this one to stay on that path.
Well, no, we wouldn't need a motion because we're going to set this path, and every Thursday we're going to look at this plan. This is the plan we had. Do we want to keep going? Yes or no? So we're going to revalidate this over the next 3 or 4 weeks with constant updates from administration as they see if they can work the solution to this. So it's not a set it and forget it. It's right, Elisa?
So when 3rd grade comes back on March 22nd, and when 6th grade comes back on March 15th, they are 6 feet apart. But when 4th and 5th grade come back on March 29th, they're 4.5 feet unless they're eating.
Correct.
Okay.
At this point, I can't support the 4th and 5th grade coming back at 4.5 feet, and you even have that in the plan. Would you be willing to make an amendment, John, to leave that part out of it and just go with the 6 feet part?
I'd prefer to leave it in and then let us each Thursday adjust as we get further guidance. And what I hope to see is just a continuous decline as we do this.
I'd also like to ask if we can, for information from whoever would know this best, when do we expect that the teachers can actually start getting vaccinations?
there were a ton of openings this morning.
But when is the official date that someone had told me the 21st they could get it, but I'm not
The
entirely.
11th of March.
The 11th. So
They can begin to schedule appointments.
right.
That
So
doesn't mean there are appointments on the 11th.
right. So I mean, if we're looking at, we're going to be asking, students to return back on what the say
29.
4th and 5th graders on the 29th. We're looking at approximately 18 days for them potentially to have received, the vaccination. I'm not sure if they'll be in the one shot where it's more, level of.
Right, but I also know that President Biden said that all teachers will be vaccinated by the end of March. And
And
yes,
yet
that's pretty
teachers
much
can
when
sign up now.
They are.
The 11th is sign up anywhere. They can sign up right now at any of the CVS locations. That already started. I know plenty who already got in as of today when they posted the numbers. The 11th is they can go to any of the locations. Right now is just the CVS locations.
I suppose, let me, in the spirit of being open here, if we can extend one more week for the teachers to have the opportunity to get the vaccination in and build up a sufficient number of antibodies to successfully, fight off this should they be exposed to it, I would feel a lot more comfortable with that and be able to support that. So if you push everything back one more week, and the only purpose for that is to give teachers a better chance to get signed up and get vaccinated, then I can support this.
Greg, do you mean for just the 29th date?
Just the 29th date, because before that, we're still maintaining 6 feet, so I'm really fine with that. So instead of looking at the 29th, my calendar cuts off within a month, that would be the
April 5th.
April 5th. I could support that for April 5th, because then you're given them more than sufficient time for teachers to get in there and actually have time to build up the antibodies.
Before I answer that, I have a technical or procedural question for Stephanie, I guess. Does the district currently have a process in place to track staff who do get the vaccine and staff who opt not to? Would administration ever know when we are at 50% vaccination, 70, is there a duty to report or disclose or not? Or is it just,
No, you can't.
Yeah, we don't track for any immunizations for
Okay.
staff. We have sent out a survey kind of gauging interest, and across the district, and including Worthington as well, I had close to 300 people interested. I'm currently working with Walgreens in Southampton to see if they could do a mass vaccination clinic for us at maybe out of Hampshire Regional. They are booked through the end of March in long-term care facilities. So the earliest I think they would be able to accommodate us would be sometime in April. And then earlier this week, I met with Eliza Lake, who's the CEO of Hilltown Community Health Center. And she was actually meeting with her vaccine planning team today to see if they would consider taking us on now that teachers will be eligible effective next week. So I'm hopeful. We're supposed to connect again tomorrow, that maybe they would be able to accommodate something sooner. I think, teachers certainly, if they're able to get appointments, should not wait. For us, where, dates and times and stuff are still unclear, certainly if they have the opportunity to get in, I would get in. But I am trying to work on something that would make it a simpler process for everyone and allow us to, get to the masses. The other thing just to consider is that unless whoever helps with this vaccination clinic ends up with Johnson & Johnson, if they're getting the Moderna vaccine, which would be most likely from Hilltown, and Pfizer from Walgreens, as there are 2 doses that need to be, depending on which one, 3 to 4 weeks apart. And they wouldn't really, it's 2 weeks after your second dose that you're kind of covered. And even then, people still need to be wearing masks and physical distancing, and, the mitigation strategies that we currently have in place don't go away. But hopefully that's just some helpful info.
thank you. Yeah, so I'd rather just leave the motion as is, also knowing that we have 4 more opportunities that we're already scheduled to meet prior to the 29th to adjust. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I like that they're all March dates, because my I guess my heart really wanted to say aye to Allison's earlier motion, which is why I abstained. I think this just does a little bit of a tweak so that I feel more comfortable giving it a yes vote.
I think I kind of wish the 4th and 5th grades were separate days and not the same day, because we're separating the 3rd, the 6th, and doing it once a week at a time. I'm not sure why we'd want 4 and 5 to go all at once when that's the group that's going to go in the closest space. So how come you want 4 and 5, who's the closest space, to come in all on the same day?
I think
Just
it's the
that's
last 2 grades, right?
right. That's just the week that April hits, so that by April we're up. But it's a valid point.
It's physically, if you do 3rd and 4th at the same time, they're on the same floor. 4th and 5th are separated. One is upstairs and one is in the separate part of the school. So 6th grade is the separate part of the school near 5th grade, but if they come in on March 15th, they're already in, they've already been established for a few weeks. Then you bring in 4th and 5th grade 4.5 feet apart. 4th grade is upstairs. 5th grade is downstairs near the 6th grade that's already been in. So I know it doesn't sound good, but it's separated physically better than bringing 3rd and 4th back at the same time.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially hallway wise, probably too.
Right.
Any other discussion? Call for the vote. Lumbra, aye. Allison,
Radon, aye.
Austin,
Rogers, aye.
Greg,
Bennett, nay.
Julianne,
Oh, sure, aye.
4-1 passes. Okay. Anything else? I think that's it for the public
Yes,
session.
I have,
Oh, he,
yeah.
like,
I have a point of order to raise.
Go ahead, Austin.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to reconsider the vote taken on February 23rd at the regular meeting related to school choice by the committee.
There's a motion to reconsider the vote. And we need a, believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, it's a 2/3 majority to reconsider a previous action.
I don't actually get that question asked too often at all, so I have no idea off the top of my head, so
Yeah.
kudos for a good question, so I'll take my reconsider that.
So while Greg's looking up what the requirement of the vote is, a motion to reconsider is just to allow us to discuss it. If voting in favor of a motion to reconsider is not supporting whatever he's going to ask us to do.
I'll second that, by the way, just because it's a good question.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Can you reconsider something that was voted on previously if it wasn't on tonight's agenda?
So good question.
Greg?
Depends upon whether you're defining that as new business, old business.
It's old business.
Well, if it's already been decided, it's done. This would be, well, semantically, you could go either way. The motion to reconsider may only be made by a member who voted on the prevailing side in the original vote. So do we have the minutes to indicate to us what that?
Oh, I was the only member to vote against it.
So,
I voted aye.
all right. So in that case, Austin can have the privilege of doing that.
How many have to agree?
That's
A majority or a?
Yeah. Majority.
Okay, so on Austin's motion to reconsider the previous motion of February, Austin,
February 23rd.
February 23rd, related to the school choice.
Yep.
Okay. In favor to allow reconsideration, Austin,
Rogers, aye.
Greg,
Bennett, aye.
Julianne.
We decide if we could even discuss it because of the agenda.
That's what. Did you get that far, Greg?
That's not as much a Robert's Rules of Order question as it is an open meeting law question in Massachusetts, which is going to take me longer to research.
Okay.
Abstain then.
Okay. Allison
Radon, aye.
and Lumbra, aye. So we can have, assuming Greg says we're fine, we can have discussion on it, and then if there's a motion to be made, it can be made, and then we follow our normal process.
There's nothing in Robert's Rules of Orders that prevent it. I'm not sure about the open meeting law, and I'm not going to be able to quickly come up with an answer for that. That's looking into case law, not out of my area of expertise.
So what's the committee's feeling before we go too far down this road tonight? We are meeting again on the 8th. We have time tomorrow's Friday. The 8th is Tuesday?
Monday.
Monday, yeah.
I might, well, if I do it as soon as we get done with tonight's meeting, I can modify the agenda for Monday night. If you'd rather err on the side of caution and have the reconsider it and have the discussion Monday night, Austin.
Well, I just wanted to make sure to do it as soon as possible, so that it was informing how we proceed. So I don't know if the 3 days makes a difference or not. But again, like Greg, I can't speak to the legality. I thought that it was about, that the rules were if the chair had a reasonable suspicion of an item, it was supposed to be put on the agenda. But
That's a pretty good way of putting it. Yeah,
I
that's
just-
why we have the idea of whole new businesses, because new business is always going to arise that we don't always know about, that we can't advertise in advance.
You're correct, but
I don't know all of the rules, so it's kind of on me.
no, you're right, but that rule, the chair sets the agenda and has to put on what the chair reasonably expects to come up, but that pertains to regular meetings. Tonight is a special meeting with a limited scope.
So I would argue that it relates to the scope of this meeting, but I don't know if that changes the circumstances.
We have new business and old business listed specifically. If we categorize this as old business, we can certainly add it because we didn't foresee it and it's already been in the past. If it's new business, it's unforeseen new business that's arisen. The chairman couldn't possibly have received communication from you on it because we haven't met since then. So I suppose I would say we should go forward, at least have a discussion on it, even if we want to hold off on voting on it perhaps till Monday.
Go ahead, Austin. What are you thinking?
So I was just thinking to, part of why I wanted to reconsider is that as we were going through the voting at the regular meeting, I was sort of learning about how this whole process works. This is my first time through this part of the process because I came on the committee March of last year. So I didn't really get a chance to learn all of these intricacies. And so I think what the spirit of my motion wasn't fully conveyed in the actual motion. So what I had moved was that we participate in school choice with an undefined number of slots such that we could have a discussion at a later time about what those number of slots would be. But I didn't put any parameters on it. Therefore, it's not really, my thinking in that was I wanted time to figure out the intricacies of what adding more students would do, with the idea that along the lines of what John was saying at that meeting, I don't want to limit our ability to distance in the future through the addition of more students. So, for example, in the classrooms that we can currently distance at 6 feet, we can't control people that move to town, right? It happens if it happens. And that's wonderful. We welcome all kids. But the addition of students through school choice, I don't think should override our ability to distance at 6 feet. For classrooms that we're able to distance at, 4.5 feet, I don't think we should be pushed below by the addition of more students through school choice only. Because again, we don't have any control over, people moving to town, and we welcome people moving to town. So that was my thinking in just cleaning up that language. And making sure we could do that, and having the kindergarten classes next year be able to, or not lose the ability to distance at 6 feet by adding students through school choice.
Yes, so I think, I think the committee, this was a contingent item last time around. I think the committee just needs to set its policy and not necessarily dive into numbers, and I don't think that's definitely not our role. But I think it is, statute requires that we either opt in or opt out of school choice, one way or the other, right? So we have to take that vote. And traditionally it's always been annualized. You reaffirm your decision to stay in school choice. Any children that are in school that you've already accepted in previous years are with you, whatever their process is. If they're in fourth grade, they're there for the next 2 years, should the parents choose to leave them in. I think the policy of, yes, we accept school choice, provided that the acceptance of children should not hinder us and force us to go beyond the scope, i.e. put us down to under 3 feet or not maintain 6 feet. I think that's the school committee, it's the policy, it's the directive. Now, based on that, administration, Eliza specifically, will work within that confounds. And if she deems that only 2 children can come in to meet that policy, or 15 children can come in to meet that policy, that's the administration's choice to do. And you're right, there is a wild card there, because I don't know what the date is, and if school starts on September 1st, if a child moves in on August 31st, we probably have to make accommodations for them. So, there could be a time when, even through the administration's best efforts, we run into an issue. But
that would be addition through new residents, right?
correct.
So
Yeah.
it wouldn't be covered under this. So that has nothing to do with this, really.
No, I don't think, I'm just stating my view on this. I don't believe the committee should be putting numbers out there, but you can have 3 in, or you can have 6, or whatever the case may be. It's, yes, we agree to school choice, but we don't want it to hamper the 6-foot rule, or whatever the case may be in kindergarten, and stop at that. And I think maybe.
And our past practice has always been in the past. We've just said yes or no. And if it's yes, we entirely let Eliza take care of it at her discretion of what she thinks is best. I mean, that's what she's closest to the situation. She's going to be the best person to make those sort of decisions. So I have complete faith in her. It's always worked well so far. I mean, if you want to give her additional guidance, I'm sure she'll be happy to take that into consideration. But I think we should just vote yes, let her do it her way. It's worked well so far.
And I agree, Greg. And it's the pandemic. It's the fluidness, and it's just throwing that extra layer on for this year alone, saying what we already know to be the case and we know is going to be followed, but it's just noting for the record. I mean, it's hard to talk about Eliza in the third person when she's here with us, but.
And it's not a comment on, this is not, again, it's an academic discussion of the merit of the ideas rather than a comment on someone's past work. That's not the intention. It's just to talk about the ideas of, do we want to clarify that position? Is that a position that you guys hold? And do we want to clarify it? Yes or no? That's really the question. Not, it's not a forum to discuss past performance at all.
Right. So I get my question to Eliza would be, based on what we just said there about agreeing to school choice, which we already did, and just saying, putting that little parameter on there, does that, doing that hamper your ability in any way, shape, or form?
You asking me if it hampers my ability?
Yeah, if we just, if we're saying what everybody believes, we're just stating it for the record.
I think so. What I said last time was the trust issue, where I feel like I'm not going to stack classrooms so that we can't come to school 6 feet apart. I'm going to be very, very tight around how many school of choice students we take at every grade level, so that we're not doing that. And we have 3 siblings coming to kindergarten already. That's it. I mean, it's possible that we only take those 3, depending on what our numbers look like coming into kindergarten. But you're right, we never know who's going to move in. to town. And like, I think last year and the year before, we had a number of, say, second graders move in, or a number of fourth graders. It was just a weird kind of thing. But it's never like 5, or 6. It's not. So I'm not going to go above and beyond to take a ton of school of choice kids this year, knowing that we might still be looking at 6 feet in the fall, or 4.5. So is that what you're saying?
I wasn't saying that you were doing that at all. It's not a comment on future performance either, just to communicate like the preference, I guess, that, we don't lose that ability. I guess that's what I was going for. But, I wasn't able to articulate it on the 23rd because I'm still learning a lot about the
Right,
process
right.
and like how it works. And if we can, the point is like, if we can distance and kids want to come, like, let's let them in, let's make them a part of the community. If we can't, then we may have to say for 1 year, just until we get things under control, that we are a little bit tighter, just because of the circumstances. But, again, it's more about our ability to distance than not wanting the kids, because I think, everybody wants as many kids as we can serve.
Okay.
I think it's like, so what also has to happen behind the scenes between now and we decide, or I decide, how many school of choice kids we have at every grade level is, if you think about it, there are 4 fourth grade teachers, there are 3 fifth grade teachers, there are 3 third grade teachers. So there's some shifting that's going to happen based on the number of fourth graders going to fifth grade. And so if I keep 4 fourth grade teachers and the third grade that's only 3 goes into fourth grade, that's 4, there are some potential spots that would open up, right? Because there's a bit greater distance between the kids with the numbers of third graders going to fourth grade, but it all depends on the budget too. So do I have the money to hire another teacher, or do I have to, go with what I have now? So this is all the planning stuff that goes into it, in addition to planning for the return of kids on the 15th, the 22nd, the 29th, like everything's moving. The budget is being built. We're going to talk about that on Monday. There are so many things that are up in the air right now that I can't even think about how many school of choice kids I would even take right now. Not ready yet. And not all the people have returned their census forms for kids going to kindergarten. And I know the town does a really good job trying to get people to hand that in, but that is really important, because then we know.
Okay. So I think that's a great discussion. I didn't hear anything that actually required another motion on us, just clarification. Are you good, Austin?
Yeah, I don't think we need to take any new votes right now. We can always do this again if it seems like, well, we don't have to, but if we needed to, we could, I suppose, at the many meetings that we have scheduled this month. So
Gotcha. Okay. If there is nothing else, I can find my agenda. Chair moves that we end the public session of tonight's meeting and that we enter into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 3021A, subsection 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation, as well as Mass General Law, Chapter 3021A, subsection 2, negotiations and collective bargaining with teachers. While the chair does anticipate votes occurring in executive session, those votes will be released at our next meeting, which is on March 8th. If and when we actually take any votes in executive session, they will be at the beginning of the agenda on Monday night. Is there a second?
second.
In favor, Austin,
Rogers, aye.
Allison,
Right on, aye.
Greg,
Bennett, aye.
Julianne,
Sure, aye.
and Lumbra, aye. Thank you. The time is 7:37. I'm going to pause the recording as this ends the public session of the meeting.